All right. So, success listeners. Today we have Michael Brown, Chairman of and CEO of Skyline Robotics. He boasts an impressive career spanning over 35 years with a primary focus on business services and distribution roll-ups. His track record includes leading two previous companies, each with revenues exceeding $400 million. Congratulations on that. While both of which were eventually acquired by publicly traded companies. Throughout his career, the companies under his leadership have collectively generated over $5 billion in revenue. His approach revolves around a proven model that drives growth and market expansion through business acquisitions, cross-selling, and organic growth, all deeply rooted in data analysis and strategic planning. Michael holds an IT degree from Syracuse University, and in his current role at Skyline Robotics, his responsibilities encompass fundraising, business development, strategic planning, and providing overall guidance. He recognizes the importance of surrounding himself with subject matter experts, such as Ross Bloom, the president and COO, who ensures the company's integrity, operations, and profitability. So, did I mess any of that up, or did I get it right?
Guilty as charged.
All righty, awesome. So, there's people listening who realize that Michael's the type of guest that's coming right up my alley, as we are both in the robotics as a service space. And I am constantly trying to learn from other people in maybe a more mature space, as a lot of the listeners who listen to my show are, startups and trying to do all the things you've already done. So, sure, better make sure you keep this show on and listen to what we have to talk about the next hour, because there's going to be a lot of good learning opportunities.
Sounds good to me.
So, with that, kind of briefly describe your journey in your own words of what you've done and how you've landed at Skyline Robotics.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in business, where my father was in distribution services, and he used to go to work at 4:00 in the morning, come home at 6, 7 o'clock at night. He would bring the orders, and we would separate, back in the day it was whites, greens, pinks, and yellows, and you separate it, and then you go. Every vacation, I was in the warehouse, or I was helping in this department or that department. And my father and I wound up becoming partners. And then in a later stage, I really got an unbelievable education from my father in business, because he would take me to all of his meetings. He would say, listen, sit down, don't speak, just listen, and maybe you'll learn something. And, and I would do that. So acquisitions and whatnot. So it really, it gave me a lot of comfortability to be around people in business. And, when I was younger, my father said to me, I was big into soccer, and he's like, Michael, he's like, come on. He's like, you think you're going to be picking up the phone, calling up your customer and asking him to go out and play soccer? He says, go pick up a golf club and learn how to play golf. So then I went and I learned how to play golf, and I wound up doing well there. And that kind of helped me in sales, and really just people wanting to, people like to play golf with good golfers. Unfortunately, I don't play golf much anymore, so I'm not that good. But I would say that what I learned a lot in my career is that the most important piece to any business are the people that are in it. And, you could have the greatest product in the world. It doesn't matter. It's the people that make it work. And it's about, like I think you said in the beginning, it's about surrounding yourself with the right people. It's about empowering those people, and realizing that you're spending more time in your business with the people that you're working with than you are with your own family. So why would you want to treat them any differently? And one of the things I learned is having an appreciation that everyone else has a family life at home and then they have problems and so forth. And that, yes, we have to accept these things. And some people are just, I found a lot of leaders are just not, I don't want to say fair, but just not empathetic, not sympathetic to that this is a collective group that needs to get successful, not one individual that's running it. So it's a lot of, I had a lot of life lessons. I saw, I operated a business during 9/11, distribution business, and I couldn't make a delivery below 14th Street for 3 months, and went from 1,300 employees down to 760 employees, and then back again. So, the good news when you're in business for called 30 years, you're going to see a lot of different things, and hopefully you learn and then do not make that same mistake as you move forward.
Correct. Well, so I want to get on. So first of all, the lack of empathy sometimes from leaders, it's because sometimes being empathetic, some people see it as like a weakness. And typically I think where that fracture comes in is like, if you tell a customer, hey, I'm kind of this person's dealing with this, we're a little delayed, the customer's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times it's like, I can be empathetic if I have some redundant loops so that I have the back end so that I don't have to share that with the customers. Because if we're doing, I can customer.
Yeah, I was going to say customers are a different story. Employees, I'm talking about customers. The world comes to an end for whatever a customer needs. You need something, it's going to happen. I am in the service industry. The last name of the company that I had was called High Touch. It's more than just a name. You're giving them high touch service. In the service industry, to me, I wouldn't tell a customer, I might say, hey, listen, sorry, I didn't call, but I was hit by a car, but I'm calling you now from the hospital. But
yeah. To explain, I think what happens is like, people see it as okay, I serve my customer and I don't care what you're dealing with. You got to serve the customer. What I've always found is I've been in business longer is finding a great team member is a lot harder than finding another customer. So if my customer can't understand like something a team member is going through, then I'm going to still service that customer. I'm going to realize that being empathetic to my team member is more important to me because they are the long-term commitment.
Listen, relationship. You can't at an enterprise level, you can't run away from it. And from even more so in a small business, for sure you can't. It's a people business.
Yes.
And even with all this automation that's coming and everything else, it's still going to be a people business.
Yes. Well, and so now look, to go into that, it's okay. I've heard you bring up the distribution, everything you learned with your donors. By the way, I think that's something that this country has to get back to accept a parent bringing their kid into a board meeting.
Listen, it was the huge. So it was my father's first company that I went to was really at a very late stage. I think I was there officially in 94. I just graduated college and I was in sales for 2 years and I was bye-bye and I went and did my own thing. In the second go round, my father did a deal with private equity and so forth, bought 12 companies all in one day and called up and was like, hey, we need someone like yourself. Are you willing to come? And the private equity team, literally, I had to work 4 times harder than everyone else, even though I would have done it anyway. But I literally had to go prove myself to every department I went to until I ascended to president after, I want to say it was 5 years. So, which was fine. But nepotism is real. However, I personally don't have, if the person is doing the work, they shouldn't be penalized for having a love for wanting to work with, a father or another person. It's just, so yeah.
Like collaboration, my daughter is my COO right now, and that's the reality. But she's same thing. She's been doing this with me since she was 16 years old. I tell people all the time, I don't have to worry about the succession plan. If I get 5+ tomorrow,
you don't have to look over your shoulder to worry that they're not. You see, what I have found is that the loyalty that you show employees and the understanding and forgiveness will always have longevity in a career. And whenever we left the business and went to another business, all of our people would come because they wanted to work in the same type of environment.
Correct. Right. That's totally accurate. So seeing all the stuff you learned about distribution, though, it interests me because you and I are seeing the world similarly right now. I'll give you a little background on myself. I was a union electrician for a while, owned a started a snowplow company, landscape company, started automating lawn mowing. And you got manufacturers out there that all see it as distribution. But the reality is, when it comes to automation, subscription, robotics as a service, the way to go, right? And talk about those teams, you still need those teams of people, So we're looking at one of the things that interests me about looking at your profile and seeing that you've got some of that experience in the distribution, but now here you are at Skyline doing robotics as a service, right? So explain that transition in your mindset. What allowed you to see the evolution of business?
Sure. So after I sold my last business and I signed a 7-year non-compete, so I was kind of like out of the industry for a long time. And I wanted to be in robotics, more in the assisted living space. And then I wound up by chance talking to someone about the window cleaning industry, and that it was a microcosm of what the office supply industry was 20 years ago, with a lot of mom and pop operators with no real national footprint. And, maybe this is a roll-up situation. And I started going through my mind. I'm like, I don't think that's really what I want to do back in the roll-up. I've got real estate. It's people, it's insurance. I don't know. And then I was driving down the West Side Highway and I looked up at Hudson Yards in New York City and I was like, man, I can't believe humans are still cleaning skyscrapers. And then I went and I looked all over the world for technology that I thought could fit what I thought needed to be done. And really, number one, there was not many. And the ones that I found were trying to come at it from let me drop something on a string that's going to be like a Rombo, vacuum against it, or it was going to be spinning wheels, car wash against it. And I was like, that's not going to work. And being from New York and being in the service industry, whether luck or not, I was like, boy, if I'm going to do this, I want to stick with the current infrastructure, work with the current infrastructure. And instead of trying to disrupt the industry and come in at like this, I want to become a partner. And so we went, I called, I went to Israel, met with their team, called up Ross, like you said, who's our president. And at that time he was at Quid, but he had a legal background. I said, hey, do me a favor, take a look at this package. I'm thinking about getting into this business. And he called me back and he's like, boy, seems really interesting. What do you know about it? And, I don't want to say it was luck, but I would say probably 60 days later, he says, listen, if you're really going to make an attempt at this, I would definitely, consider joining. And I said, well, I wouldn't be able to do something like this unless I had someone like yourself, because, we're at different stages of our life and there's expertise that you have that I for sure don't have, nor can I, do it. And oh, by the way, the company's based out of Israel and there are 8 employees there at the time. So yeah, I mean, that's really how we saw it. And what Ross and I figured quite early was that there were multiple businesses that being a first party provider was not going to be the right model for this industry. Maybe it's the right model for certain geography, but starting in New York City, a union labor market, a relationship market, and that what I have found is that in service businesses, it's about the relationship, because the person needs to know that on the other side, they have someone that they can depend on and that they don't have to worry about it so they can get it off their plate.
Yeah. So, explain to people that have never even thought about how the automatic window washer can work on a skyrise in New York. Like you kind of talked about how you looked at certain ones and knew it wouldn't work. So, for the sake of Skyline, explain to us. Act like I'm a guy with a high rise. And I want to
Yeah,
watch
listen,
how does it work?
it's a no-brainer from that standpoint. Everyone knows what a robotic arm looks like from, let's say, the warehouse, from the car manufacturing industry.
Yeah.
What we've done is we're utilizing one of those, and then we are putting a brush on it, and then we're putting 198 other parts together. All of our hardware is off the shelf. So we use all name brand hardware, and everything about the robot that makes it different is obviously the AI, the ML, and all the algorithms behind it that has been working since 2017 on thousands of iterations and so forth. And I didn't know it at the time, but we have what's called the distributed robotic system. So we don't just have one called technology that we're trying to figure out with the robot. You have the robot, then you have, when you think about skyscrapers, communications, right? So imagine being 300 meters in the air, you need to have constant communications with the robot or it shuts down. And when you think of cities that have rivers of frequencies of different, radio waves and sound waves, it's very hard to get one consistent signal. We've been able to do that. That was an accomplishment. Having water come down from the top of the roof without exploding.
Yeah, just on the pressure of that.
Right. I mean, if anyone knows, you jump in off the top of a boat, if you were to go 200 meters down, your head would explode. So we needed to make sure that we're using algorithms to use air and water to make sure at no time, at no point in the whole entire drop, is there enough pressure that's going to explode the rubber hose, because those are easy to explode.
Yeah.
You can't use metal because you're not going to have metal coming, flying down. And water is, we use deionized water, but that we're not using any chemicals. So we're using, clean mineral deionized water, and letting it dry streak free. So there are, I did not understand this when I got into it. If I knew everything that I know now, I would have never gotten into it. No one would ever get into it. Because it's just like, blood, sweat, and tears I can handle. But when you're not a subject matter expert and you have to depend on a subject matter expert, you better make sure you pick the right one. And what we found very quickly was that we did not have the subject matter experts that we needed to build this company with the 8 people that we had. And Ross, to his credit, was able to build the team. He's got 30 people now in Israel, with a real R&D team, mechanical, electrical, algorithm control, validation. So to be able to do this also from, thousands of miles away on a different time zone is also not the easiest thing in the world. However, he's done a phenomenal job, and the company is poised for some real success.
So, I'm left wondering, okay, so you got the robotic arm and, you talk about the water and stuff like that, but instead of human beings being on the scaffold moving down the side of the building, it's just the robotic arm.
Correct. And I apologize. What we're doing is, imagine taking the 2 people that are usually in the basket out of harm's way, and we're putting the robots into the basket, and they stay in the basket. So where a normal operation would be 3 humans, it goes down to 1 human with the human on the top, and the 2 humans that were in the basket in New York that are union labor are getting retrained, certified, paid more money to become robotic operators, so that they can then, the window cleaner dealer can augment their workforce.
And then they can know that they're going to go home to their family and not be going from the scaffold if they only day.
Listen, I see it as a big value, but for some odd reason, the insurance companies so far, it's like I had a conversation. I said, so if I'm able to knock down 50% of the labor hours on the side of a building at extreme heights, isn't there like a huge savings there? We don't really look at it. But New York is a very an interesting place because it's the only state that has a law, I think it's law 240, scaffolding law 241, which makes it a very, very regulated operation for work at heights with scaffolding.
I can say that this is the discouraging thing right now in the automation space is there's really, there's 2 people like us that have ideas and see. It's pure logic, right? I mean, logically, your risk of someone falling is less. The unions should love it because unions started on workforce safety. So it's safe for the person, they're monitoring the safety of the roof, monitoring what's there, higher wages, safer wages, and like it checks all the boxes. But then there's people that should get it, but they don't. And it's like they almost do it on purpose because by getting it, they would have to offer some sort of a discount, and that affects them. It's like everybody's trying to look for their cut sometimes. In that, other thing is that greed is what actually slows down an industry that can solve so many problems. And it's troubling to me. It's like even in capital, it's like, so for me, maybe we'll get this too, because obviously you got to raise capital. And the thing that's always difficult for me is I just had a call today that I won't say with who, and I was telling them my service model, and they're like, yeah, those you have to scale and you have to raise capital. It's like, look, when it comes to the service, it's like an printing money, right? It shouldn't be hard for me to raise capital. The thing that makes it difficult is it doesn't fit their traditional spreadsheet. The traditional spreadsheet is you buy this equipment, the depreciation vessel to the equipment with the person on it, your salaries are going to increase 3 to 5%. With automation, it just turned that its way. Instead of them actually listening to the subject matter experts, they try to act like we're somehow seeing rainbows and butterflies that don't exist.
Well, yeah, and people, it's very difficult to fundraise, to your point. I mean, I was more, our businesses, I had inventory, I had receivables, I had assets. So I was more of a commercial banker. Ross, who is from the VC space, understands the VC space, it's very formulaic in my mind, the way VC works. They have a formula. This is what we follow. And if you hit all these milestones, yeah, you can go there. Not so easy in the robotics being a very capex intensive business. The big issue that I see about why it's so hard to raise capital is because nothing is become ubiquitous, right? There's nothing so far that all of a sudden was like, wow, that took over in a second, and then everyone jumps on board. So my hope is we might be that type of, we're robotic as a service, and it's more of a collaborative service than it is a 100% automation. And I think that there are going to be pockets of singular focus, robotic, automated solutions that I think will do very well. And I think the what I call the single purpose automated robot is, I think, the first starting point. I think the whole humanoids and all that's a whole different discussion about where that.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you look at the humanoids, at least they're starting to realize that if we're going to automate a world that was designed for human beings, that's where you get the humanoid side, right? You're trying to automate that. But what I don't understand is there's so much money, there's so much research and development in that humanoid side that everybody's missing the areas that have redundant things that you can't fill the workforce anymore. I would cringe even thinking about getting that scaffold and going down the side of the building. We've all seen the videos where one gets crazy and it's swaying and to the wind. It's like being on a bad amusement park ride, but the reality is, I see all of this funding made for that kind of stuff, and a lot of it's fueled by our military or whatever, right? But then there's not any funding for the things that actually you could put out to use, change the fully burdened labor rate, like in my space. It's like there's stuff where I look and say, okay, like there's something working with right now. They have work. They shouldn't be pilots, a zero turn robot, and there's 2 or 3 units that's all funded. Drags your fully burdened labor rate. They're getting the rates, $40 an hour. You put 3 of those behind you, or it drags that rate down to $25 an hour. So easy to prove out the use case. So easy to prove out, in my opinion, to a bank to say, I need capital for this equipment. But then they're questioning, well, what happens if the technology changes in 3 years? Who deals with that? And it's like, I just showed you I have a vessel to bring my labor down 2/3. I can change my unproductive labor by 2/3. And now you're asking this question.
Listen, the world's in a very weird place, unfortunately, given in so many areas, but in the business area, SaaS is very, you can expand it quickly. It rolls out nicely. The metrics are there, and everyone's got that formula. Until a fair amount of companies, a handful, can prove out they can survive, I don't think you're going to get many investments into these. Like there was Robotire. People are like, maybe they're going to raise 5, 10, 15 million. But, to really, you're going to need to start raising 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million if you're really going to blow out the robotics world and you're going to go global. It's it's just, it takes so long to bring something to market that's safe.
Yeah.
In the SaaS world and the AI world, there's no longer any checks or balances. So they have a new algorithm out. They just put it right into live, right? So, oh, let's see if anyone winds up throwing themselves off a building, and we better change that algorithm. I mean, that's really, I mean,
Yeah.
how sick it is of what is going on with technology. That is my biggest concern for that humanoid technology. Because one of the things is, my number one fear when I went into the business was, how much time am I going to have between now and that humanoid that's going to be $8,000, that, just like a regular window, meaning a small window cleaning company would do. They'll just throw a humanoid in there and see if it can work. That was now, after learning more about the business and seeing what's going on, I'm not really worried about humanoids coming into the window cleaning industry for skyscrapers. Maybe for small homes, but not for skyscrapers.
Yeah. So, to digress a little bit from the automation talk, is, part of your background is the buying and the roll ups, so are you doing any of that at Skyline right now? I'm assuming there's nothing.
No, so
there's nothing there. So that's just a pure startup.
Well, now what we are doing is we're building out our distribution. And that has, I believe it's going to be one of the biggest differentiators of us, is that we will have global distribution before the end of the year, with partners that are exclusive. We're only doing exclusive deals. So for us, if we're going to invest time and money, it's got to be reciprocal. So like New York, exclusive. London, exclusive. The deal that we're working on for this global deal, exclusive. So my hope is, all things being equal, I believe that we will have created a distribution model that's pretty strong and moat-like for someone else that wants to come into the window cleaning industry. And that is what 20 million, that we invested in, that we invested in the product, and then try to turn that into the business to be able to lay out, because you have to have buy-in on the other side, because technology is not easy, and people have to know what they're signing up for. And the good news is that most of the people that are in the technology space in what we're doing are early adopters and expect, like, oh, people were shocked when we did clean the building, and they're like, oh, so it works. And now, so even though we would show videos, even though we had, as many referrals and references, until someone actually saw clean, this building in New York, a full skyscraper, everyone was like, well, I don't know if it's really going to work.
Well, because they assume it's all BS. I just had a client come and see some of my automatic mowing equipment, and he came from New York. He actually came from Buffalo, and he was like, "Man, I'm so glad I came, because I would have just assumed you photoshopped it all." Like that's what it is. Because I think there's some companies that, like, sometimes for people that are not in the space, they almost feel like it's too good to be true.
Right.
They just think it's another crazy plot or storyline from Hollywood. So It's cool, and this is what inspires me about doing the show is like talking to people like you that everybody in the automation space, we're living like parallel lives. Like there's all these niches where it's like I want to call it dirty jobs, but it is. I mean,
Dirty, dull, dangerous jobs, the 3Ds.
correct. Where it's like these are the spaces where, when you said earlier, if there's going to be 5 companies that do it, like these are going to be the spaces. It's going to be golf and outdoor automation, cutting grass daily, redundant, get rid of environmental pressure, 10,000 workman's comp injuries, cutting off fingers and toes, disappear, truly case. It's going to take years of analytics to show we can put our robotic arms over the side with the scaffold. In the worst case scenario is we have a robotic arm swaying in the wind. It's the same scenario as would be with human beings. I listen to the insurance worry, and they're probably looking at our worry is actually not the 2 people on the scaffold; it's the people below them.
Wow.
How many people are we going to kill, right? But then they have to start to realize you are going to make different decisions at that company when you don't have the 2 people on the scaffold to get the scaffold back up. Part of the bad things that happen is making the decisions to sacrifice the 2 lives on the scaffold for the people below, or we're just going to lose 2 robotic arms.
Yeah, and
Right.
and that's the problem with regulations, technology, and so forth, is that we're outpacing obviously the regulations. No one wants to be the person that signs off on the thing that goes and kills someone.
Yeah.
So it's going to take, hopefully, guys like you, guys like me, and Ross that are going to prove people not wrong, but prove people that there is a business here. Now, I'm not saying it works for everything. I mean, listen, our neighbor in Israel was Stanley Decker's lawnmower division. Literally, they're closing.
So here, this is why all those lawnmower ones are closing now, because they try to do it in a distribution model. So here's what happens. They go to a place like Sweden. Okay, I'll give you an example. I actually try not to say name brands, but you can do the math or figure it out in your own mind. So you go to Sweden, labor rates are through the roof, and small parcels of ground, and the people just buy them. Okay, they buy it, they put it up. Then they come to the United States, where 50% of the United States is all mowed with contractors. The United States has a love affair for their lawns that you don't see in other parts of the world. Like when I go to the UK, one of my partners, actually a company I'm acquiring in the UK right now, we don't even treat their grass for weeds. I mean, it looks like crap. There's clover, dandelions, it's just what it is. Well, in the United States, it's like a crop. It's perfect. So they come and they duck long. They're like, yeah, these Americans are buying stuff. They need to be in a service model. So then they use old, outdated vessels to sell into. Like you said earlier, mom and pop dealers that have no means of capital, they can't support this product. And then what happens is they just think the line's not good for them. They just get to market improperly.
Correct. Hey, can I tell you something? 100%. The market is ready for something if the execution happens. I just believe that. You will get, assuming you don't get, blockers like, regulations, you will get traction. I mean, but to your point, no one's, walking in and, it took Roomba a long time, right?
Yes.
And that's a good, I guess a little, I'm surprised they didn't go to it. They must be in Mullen.
Must be what?
They must be in Mulling too, no?
Well, they're not. Actually, I had Howard Grenier on my podcast, who actually was the inventor.
All right. Didn't Amazon buy Roomba?
They did.
Yeah.
And then they bought them, and then they kind of held everything.
Yeah. They just wanted their floor plan stuff.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it was a huge debacle. And actually, Mullen was a very strong voice. I noticed on LinkedIn about it. He was really upset about it. Oh, one of the things I talked to her about that I thought was funny is what automation. How many people do you know? They're like, those things are fine until they run over a dog turd in your house, and it's like, that's not the robot's fault. Why is there a piece of dog shit laying in your house?
Exactly.
See, and that is the thing. I I find it comical, like we're both smiling about it, but sometimes it's quite frustrating. Then, as an automation expert, I have to overcome these little like hurdles they want to throw at you. And I mean, I guess that is part of the automation. How do you deal with, how do you overcome these objections, right? Because it's actually an opportunity. Like I would say, if Rhombus could somehow have density sensing in it and see that dog turd sitting in front of it, you go around it, they would sell another 2 billion units.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, go back. I guess space is, like I said, it's so interesting to me because then the other thing that I never understand is there's certain states, New York being one of them, California. I live in Illinois. Illinois should be adopting a lot of this stuff is all electric. I'm sure with you guys, you're metering how much water, you're not using chemical, so you can do all this stuff, talk about how environmentally this is good. And in all the states that should support it the most, they're the ones that want to do job studies, they do all this other stuff. And then I go to these red states right now, and I say it just as it is in the United States, and go to these very Republican states, and they're just like, yep, can't find labor. I've got to figure out a way to still provide the service. So when you look at it, like some of the states that are legislating against it are the states that are actually knocking off their own efforts.
Yeah, for growth.
Yes.
Listen, the labor shortage is real in many different industries. Window cleaning being one of them for sure. And listen, my hope is we're coming out of a very strange election. And we're looking at probably one of the greatest minds on the planet that has now decided to join forces with, the president. And if history repeats itself on how he operates, I think you're going to see a lot of openness to bring more technology to solve the problem rather than, because one of the biggest issues, like the fact that autonomous cars are not allowed is the most ridiculous thing in the world. They think that it's got to be 100%. Excuse me.
You don't have drivers at 100%. You have people driving drunk every day.
By the way, we could, if we adopted it and made it happen, you would save tens of thousands of lives a year.
Well, and listen, I just talked about this. So sorry, you can see I just sat in my chair. What I say to people all the time, it's the biggest freedom. I mean, for me, as an American, your automobile is the makes me feel the most free. Anything. And I've often said the day that my driving rights get stripped away from me, when I hit a point in age where they're like, Joe, you really shouldn't be driving anymore. I don't know that I would have a will to even live anymore. If you're sure, wow, still driving vehicles, you can still be a person that walks out on a walk and put it in the car, be like, take me from here to there, and you can get so yes, there is a huge reason for it. The efficiency of it, traffic, most traffic jams are just caused by gapers delays, or people pumping the brakes and they don't need to. All of that is automated. You're from point A to point B with won't rush hour traffic. So many benefits. I agree with you.
Yeah, but you almost need to build that, like what's happening in Saudi Arabia with NEOM and whatnot. You need to literally start from scratch, say, okay, we're going to start off building a place to live that is built for a connected robotic, as a service society. But we'll have to see. But for us, it's a lot of blocking and tackling. It's education. It's getting out in front of the customer and showing our stuff.
Yeah. So to get us back on track, because apparently I realize
It happens.
we have very similar personalities, so we're
Oh,
hopefully the guests are following us. We're kind of bouncing around like a ping pong ball here. But so where do you see any for the goals that you guys set out to accomplish with Skyline? Would you say you're there? I mean, is everything going in the way you planned the curve?
Okay. So the ultimate goal for global domination, okay, is where that's the ultimate goal, right? And we are getting all the pieces aligned to get to that point. Now, you make pivots, but the end goal is to still be the global dominant player. So that is that. I believe we are on the trajectory for that, but a lot of things have to happen, right? Technology always has to work. Geopolitical things now are a little, sketchy. With China, Russia, here, there, that not every market's even available. But there's enough business just in the United States. But this is one of those, and I said this to Ross, and I say this to people all the time. The only way this is not going to be successful is if I run out of money. That's it. We are executing. I believe we've walked into the industry with the right approach. We are friendlies. We are trying to bring technology and safety and data to an industry that did not have it before. And we want to provide that to the real estate service providers. I don't want to be a service provider, but I know what they need. And I know that in their businesses, they're not going to spend the money to invest in that. So if I create if I have a SaaS platform that can track everything that's going on in a building, and I can go into a window cleaner and say, hey, how'd you like to be able to offer this as a package for your customer? It's a different approach. And then on new construction, that's just, to me, the craziest opportunity just on the planet, just because architects have really designed some incredible structures that are going to be built around the world. And our plan is to make sure that we're part of all those that we can.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to bring that up because it is nice on the front end, like for us in our world of automation, is to make sure the infrastructure or the things that help our products work better out in the field are integrated in that construction. So I assume once they start designing buildings for this type of technology, that takes a lot of the hurdle that you're dealing with away and just opens up
New construction, you're starting with a clean slate. This is where we want the power. This is where we want water. This is what we want here. This is what we want there. It's a lot easier. When you're doing an existing building, you're retrofitting. Now, not when I say retrofitting, it's not so much the robots are always going in the basket. So that's not any change. But where's the power? Where is there, where is the water? Where is there shade? There's just a lot. And rooftops are different all over the world. I mean, in South Korea, I was in South Korea in May. Every building over 11 stories has to have a helicopter pad on it.
Wow.
Yeah, so that they can for emergency services, because it's such a highly then
Yeah, we can take people off the top instead of right the other.
right. So, so that kind of makes rooftop equipment a little difficult, but it's a big market. So, if they have 10,000 buildings there and we can, convert 1,000, I'm happy.
Well, see, this is the thing, and actually, I love your attitude and approach because this is what I've been telling people lately. Everybody I collaborate, because I collaborate with people in my own space, and I say, look, you know, if my company AOS is 10% of the space, it's like $2 billion, right?
Yeah.
You don't. It's like I tell people, like, there's so much room for collaboration in this market right now. It's the Wild West. It's like the gold rush, and
Yeah. Listen, if you have, and they show it, but like what Stanley did, what I saw, at least what they did, I saw the offices were beautiful. The way they test everything was like state of the art, and it becomes a line item expense that's draining against the other their other company. They're like, why do we need this? Let someone else figure it out and we'll buy it.
yes, it's one of the things I was telling somebody the other day with this is now listen, when it comes to capital raise, I did my own capital. Like I tell people I'm just fortunate enough to have a company profitable enough to be the VC of my new company, right? So it's just me and my brother still. And one thing I tell people is like, we're this anomaly. I tell people I'm like Neo from the Matrix in my market because people are like, I don't even know how you guys still exist. But I built a profitable business model. So since I'm using my own money,
Right.
I don't want to lose it. So it's like, I have to be at this price. And why I like to collaborate with people, I told them today, it's like, look, I just was talking something today. I said, look, I know this model works. I still exist with no capital. But you keep it at this cost model, we're still sending the end user 2/3 from what they used to spend. Then it's a profitable business model. And that's one of the things why I do the show is to inspire people want to get into spaces like this. Make sure the model you build in the robotic consumer model actually can sustain itself on its own legs.
Yeah.
Because if everybody keeps building these models that causes investors to lose money, we're going to be 10 years further behind. Going off what you said earlier, we need 5 or 10 success stories in the space to get the faucet to open in funding. But so many people are unsuccessful, it just turns into a burn. And like to your model, it's like with Stanley or any of these robot brands having all these testing facilities. They'd be better off to give someone like me or another professional landscaper 5 or 10 free units and just have their engineers follow us. It's a real save all the money on the property and the research because you can't test equipment like this in a controlled environment.
Nope.
It's best tested on 10 different skyscrapers in 10 different commercial properties in every city.
Correct.
Actually honed in.
Yeah, and it's time and money, and it's the birth of an industry, and there are more and more people getting into it. You just gotta ride it out, right, and keep it going because it's gonna. I believe that there are going to be opportunities for people like you, like me, that people are going to be like, I don't want to have to build this. I'll just go buy that. My big issue is that I'm having so much fun in certain areas that, and I want to, I like operating businesses. Right.
Yeah.
And, Ross likes to start businesses. And, most of Ross's career has been startup. And then he gets to a certain point, and then he moves on to start something else. I'm more of a let's build this out. Let's see this through, because once you get to your mojo, game over. It just becomes, I mean, I've had this in both my previous businesses in certain categories where, like, we were the first K-Cup distributor for Keurig offices. Because we had first entree and we were penetrating the market, we were making all this money in the beginning, tons of it. Then it got commoditized, right? So I know in this case, one, window cleaning is only an entree point for us to the building. We want to obviously be able to give you facade health profile, tell you you've got water or air filtration. When you think about ESG and what's going on with carbon. So the window cleaning is that one piece. So to your point, when you talk about, incentivizing your audience about getting them passionate, you want to be able to find something that, if you can get good at it and get credible at it, the add-ons become a no-brainer, because they're like, well, you're there anyway, so why not?
Yes. Yeah, and listen, that's where and you haven't realized that in the landscape space a long time ago. I mean, if you plow the snow, you do the landscape. You do the landscape, you do the irrigation. If you do the irrigation, they're asking you to sweep the parking lot. It just keeps rolling. People just want a point of contact that they know takes care of everything.
They want labor.
Yeah.
They want efficient, dependable labor. And maybe, there, when you talk about the dirty, dull, dangerous jobs, the hope is that those jobs do go to automation. I believe there does need to be some thought put towards what is being automated and what is not, right? Like, I don't think trying to put a certain category of people out of work is the right societal approach. That's going on.
Well, I look at it like you always need that forward-facing personality. So, like here at restaurants, for instance, I think it's easier to have a robotic chef. Now, chefs would like me to say this. Well, robotic chef is a robotic server. I have a conversation with my servers. The server is the customer service part of the business. So,
just like the delivery person is for every one of the companies out there.
Correct. So when I see the companies doing robotic servers, kind of like, okay, well, I mean, I suppose they don't have to carry the tray and stuff. That's kind of nice for them for worker safety scenario. But I agree with you. There's some spots where I think that the human touch is the way to go. But when I look at a lot of tasks, they don't get done well. The lack of labor causes many tasks to just not get performed as well as they could.
Or not.
So, yeah. And how many people probably say, I cleaned those windows, but they didn't get to them, but they knew they had deadlines so they see it. How many people say they cut an acre of grass, but they skipped it that week because they just fell behind and they hope no one caught them? This is the stuff that I like to try to make decision makers realize, like, look, we can offer you more consistent, usually inflation-proof. We can also kind of slow inflation, maybe not bust it, but slow it down with automation, and attract that younger worker. That's the other thing. People are always not paying attention to how many people are retiring from a space versus how many are coming in.
Right.
No one wants to ask that worker why. They usually blame it on laziness. They don't breed hard work. And I always tell people, the parents and the people hiring people are not realizing people have had computers in their laps since they were 12 years old. We were still, you and I, we looked similar age. We were writing papers, and I was asking my mom to type it for me.
Right.
So I always like to end the show with, we've done an hour quickly. Get up. You'd like to say about what you're doing that I haven't touched on or you think should be brought up to the audience about your mission and your goal for for Skyline in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I very much enjoyed our conversation. If the content works, I hope, but I really did enjoy
Well,
the
I think we're
conversation. And you could keep it maybe for, if it doesn't go, it'll be a vault series, one of your vault series. I would say,
it'll go.
I would say that for me, the success Skyline to be successful, I guess in my eyes, is I would say from the outside looking in, not so much from the financial standpoint. This is not meaning if you take, obviously, yes, to be successful, you have to have a balance sheet that works and it's generating cash and so forth. But for us, I think that if we are continuing to roll out in A markets and becoming more and more dense, where our product is becoming more and more ubiquitous, where we are not just looked at as window cleaning, but it's really starts going towards that ESG monitoring and solutions providing. I don't want to be in the solutions business, but I sure would like to be able to give a blueprint and say, hey, here are all the problems with the outside of your building. And, you should be going to your manufacturer before the warranty's up. So I'm looking to become the doctor of the building owner, right? So that take a Durst, who's one of our customers. They have 27 buildings. Let's say I don't know what their portfolio is worth, 4 billion, 5 billion. How would you not want to have an understanding of what is the health of your assets? And there's no one that when you have that conversation doesn't say, no, you're 100% right. So, and even in the low labor markets, like in the GCC type region, they want the data too. Because right now, the maintenance world is being done on best practice, not on data-driven decisions. So when we can get to a place where we can empower our customers to make data-driven decisions, that to me is going to be one of the things that we're looking to bring to the market successfully. That I will feel great about. I believe we're much closer than further. I believe that it's just going to continue to take, grind, raise capital. And, I believe we're going to announce a fair amount of wins, and then that should put the capital discussion to the back, and we can start really focusing on, because fundraising just takes up so much time. And for me, Ross is not that we don't have we have a phenomenal team. People are putting God knows how many hours in. Ross is an anomaly from a standpoint of to be successful, in my opinion, in this type of business, in a startup, you need a Ross, right? You just need that person that really. Ross just has a different mode. He's got a great background with a legal background. He is always looking to really dive deep. Me, I want to be out of the weeds. I want to be saying, okay, here, let me go run to this person who knows this person, who can get me to that person because I want to get this. That's a lot of that. And that's how we get, we're able to do what we're doing, is because if Ross and I were doing all the same things, we couldn't get anything done. Okay. And it's not like Ross calls me and he's like, hey, I'm thinking about it. We understand what we're doing. And communications are critical in building a business. Yeah, it's a wild ride. And, my hat's off to you if you've done it a lot. I never went this way with, go raise capital and just keep burning until you finally get there. But it's fun.
There's listen. I haven't, like I said to you before, I haven't raised capital, but I know I'm going to need to. Like you brought up the global domination part, and that's where I am. Like I tell people all the time. I actually just talked to a very large manufacturer today, just for our podcast, and that was one of the things that I told him today. Is like they're a global manufacturer. I want to be a global service provider, and
100%.
and people ask me why. And I said, I am the subject matter expert of this right now. Like I see the world almost in a different dimension than the manufacturers do. And I never claim, I tell everyone, like, I take no claim to engineering my own product. I am just really good at looking at a product and looking for data and saying, if you have a go-to-market strategy issue, I can fix that problem.
Right.
And because I can stay focused on that, it gives me the bandwidth to just keep building this like dominating global service business, but not have to burn the money on the other ceiling of the R&D. My thought is, I'll let somebody else cap raise for all the R&D. Well, I want to cap raise the service product that's already been tested and works. They just have a go-to-market strategy problem.
And the product that you're using is your own, or it's not?
No, so I only have one product that's my own, which is the ball washing management system for the company I bought in the UK. So it's like we have robots that'll dump golf balls. We actually bring them in under vacuum. We scrub them and we automatically put them in a final receiver. It's like going to a bowling alley golfing. Okay,
love it.
Driving ranges. All of the other brands that I use, and I mean, Plus Gavarna, Echo, Nexmo. They take all of these.
So you're repping the brands and you're providing the services around it.
Basically, buy those brands, put them into a holding company, and then put them out in a clean service model. Mm-hmm. So the customer then never sees the cost of the equipment. The customer sees the monthly cost per month to perform the work.
Right.
So that's like what I do. So like I had that other manufacturer call me today and said, well, what keeps you from using another brand? I said, nothing.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, that's my only job. Now, why I bring people agnostically on the show, I bring end users, I bring engineers, I get people from NASA on. It's to inspire whether you're people making product on your own or using product that somebody else makes, to inspire collaboration and to realize that this motivation space, no matter what space it's sitting motivated, is such infancy. It almost is going to take a community of people working together to grow all spaces. Like people always talk about the rising tides raising all ships, but they actually look at it as like rising tides. They're not looking at it as a global. That's the whole point of, just so you know, what inspires me to make this podcast is to get people to realize we're all similar minds. We're thinking the exact same way, just in these different verticals.
Correct. And listen, I think you have a much better path for success if the technology exists and you can create the business model that is different, like you have, because then, you don't have to work. The R&D is just, it's a background.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. My hats are off to anyone doing right. That's right. I never want anybody to think I'm like a poser. That's what I tell people. Like, look, all of my background is providing service in spaces.
Listen,
and that's where I stick to my lane.
Yeah. service, and just get up and go out and go get it. I mean,
Yeah.
I will tell you this, like people are like, so you went and you chased your idea? I'm like, yeah, I did. I really believed in it. And I was like, man, I'm going to kick myself one day if I don't really pursue this.
So I told someone the other day, I feel like I'm like a polar bear, just hunting. You know, you cannot get me a territory. If I can walk it, drive it, swim it, boat it, I will get to that iceberg to
I
get
love
that
it.
feel. Like that's my mindset, right? And like last week, I went into Michigan and drove from Kalamazoo all the way to Traverse City, all the way back around over Mackinac Island, came all the way back for a week and got 4 booked golf courses. And I came back and I told my fiance, I said, I feel like I just went on the biggest hunt of my life. Like that's the thing. Like when you love business, and this is the thing about people like you and I, Michael, is so many people that you said something earlier, you love business. That to me was like a vacation. It was like a 1 week. I took it, everything around me. I saw places in the country I'd never seen before. I made sure I took the path less traveled. I drove up Lake Michigan instead of taking the highway and added 25 minutes to my run per trip. And I enjoyed the scenery. I enjoyed the trip. And I did what I love doing, which was spreading my passion in how I can help someone automate.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So, anyways, we're not, I think we've got a lot of good micro quotes that'll come out of this podcast, which I don't know if you know we do. So that'll hit. So pay attention to that on your social media. If you haven't done it, follow me on LinkedIn. I'll give you a follow because that's where all that stuff comes out. And then to the listeners, I appreciate you allowing us to just kind of do what we do as leaders and just kind of go back and forth our trials and tribulations. I hope it was entertaining.
It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, so I appreciate the time. And when it goes this fast, it's a good time. So.
Absolutely.